$500,000? That's quite a figure. It's the value of a big shipment of Indian mangoes, all ready for the U.S. market, that just got, well, rejected unexpectedly.
Yeah, it's a story that definitely catches your attention, makes you think about the whole journey our food takes.
Absolutely. And today we're going to dive into the news reports behind this whole situation.
And you really need context here. India isn't just a mango producer, it's the world's largest. By a long shot.
How large are we talking?
Well, they grow over 1,000 varieties. Think about that. And they contribute something like 43% of global production.
43%.
Yeah, more than the next 4 biggest producers put together.
Wow. Okay, so when a $500,000 shipment from India gets turned away, it's a pretty big deal.
Exactly. It's not just a blick. It could signal bigger issues.
Right. So our mission today, essentially, is to figure out why. Why were these specific mangoes refused entry? What does it mean for the exporters? And what underlying complexities does this maybe reveal about global food trade?
Okay, so diving in. The news reports are pointing towards problems, alleged problems anyway, with the documentation. Specifically, the paperwork tied to the irradiation treatment.
Irradiation. Okay, let's unpack that. What is it, and why is it needed for mangoes going to the U.S.?
Right. So irradiation, it's a critical step for a lot of fruit exports. Mangoes definitely included for the U.S. Think of it as a safety process.
A safety process? How so?
Well, they use a controlled dose of radiation. It's designed to kill any pests, insects, larvae, that sort of thing that might be hiding in or on the fruit. And a side benefit is it often extends shelf life too.
Ah, okay. So it's about preventing pests from entering the U.S. and helping the fruit survive the trip.
Precisely. And for mangoes heading stateside, it's not optional. It's a mandatory treatment. They have to undergo it.
Got it. And this wasn't just one small batch, right?
No, not at all. We're talking about 15 separate shipments, rejected at major U.S. airports, L.A., San Francisco, Atlanta.
15? Wow. And the reports link the documentation issue back to when the irradiation happened.
Apparently so, yeah. For these specific shipments, the process took place in Mumbai, back on May 8th and 9th. That's where the documentation trail seems to run into trouble.
So what happens then? The mangoes arrive, the paperwork's not right. What are their exporters told?
Well, the options weren't great, basically.
Sure.
Destroy the cargo right there, or pay to ship it all back to India.
Ooh, that's a tough choice.
Especially with mangoes,
Yeah?
They're perishable. And the cost of shipping them back across the globe, it's huge. So they ended up deciding to just discard the fruit.
Which leads us back to that $500,000 figure, an estimated loss of about $500,000. That's devastating for those businesses.
Absolutely, a massive financial hit.
But the story gets a bit more complicated, doesn't it? The exporters have their own take.
They do. They're arguing that, well, they shouldn't be the ones penalized. They claim the irradiation itself happened at a facility in Navi Mumbai, near Mumbai.
Okay.
And here's the crucial part. They say it was done under the direct supervision of a U.S. Department of Agriculture officer, a USDA officer.
Wait, so a U.S. official was supposedly overseeing the process that then led to rejection by the U.S.?
That's the claim, yes. And if that's accurate, it does raise some interesting questions.
Like what?
Well, typically, having an official from the importing country there is meant to ensure compliance, right, to prevent exactly this kind of problem. So if a USDA officer was supervising, you have to ask, where did the documentation error actually happen? And, what were the responsibilities of everyone involved?
It does muddy the waters a bit. What has the USDA said in response?
Well, the reports indicate their response was pretty blunt. They apparently told at least one exporter they wouldn't be offering any remedial measures. Basically, no help with the loss.
So tough luck, essentially.
Seems that way from the exporter's perspective. You can imagine the frustration. You follow the process, you think you have oversight, and then this happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was another layer too, right? Something about an Indian agricultural authority.
Yes. The Office of the Chairman of APIDA, that's the Agricultural Processes Food Products Authority, reportedly suggested directing questions to the Maharashtra State Agricultural Marketing Board, MSAMB.
MSAMB.
Right. They're based in Vashi, Mumbai, near where the facility is. They're a key player in agricultural marketing and exports from that state. Pointing towards them, especially since the facility was USDA-approved and located there, kind of highlights how many different agencies and layers are involved.
It really paints a picture of just how complex this international trade stuff is, especially when you remember India's position as the world's biggest mango exporter. This isn't just some small, isolated incident.
Definitely not. It could have ripples, affect confidence, maybe lead to procedural reviews, and the report confirms the exporters are very concerned.
Understandably so. These incidents, they really put a spotlight on that tension between rules and reality.
Exactly. You've got the importing country's safety rules, the U.S. needing pest-free fruit, you've got India's export procedures, and then you have these very specific treatments like irradiation with their own protocols.
And if anything goes wrong anywhere along that chain.
Boom. Big financial losses for the people actually growing and shipping the product.
So wrapping our heads around this, key takeaway is a major $500,000 loss for Indian mango exporters. The trigger. Alleged paperwork errors tied to that mandatory irradiation.
And the twist is the exporters claim that this very process was overseen, at least partly, by U.S. officials themselves.
Which leaves us, and you the listener, with a really interesting question, I think. What does an incident like this actually tell us about the sheer complexity of trading food globally, especially perishable food?
Right. You have this absolute need for food safety regulations. That's non-negotiable for consumers everywhere.
Of course, but then you have the logistics, the businesses, the livelihoods tangled up in making that trade happen smoothly.
So where's the balance? When something goes wrong in this incredibly complex chain involving multiple countries, agencies, processes, who bears the responsibility? And how do you make the system work without these kind of painful disruptions?
It definitely gives you pause. Makes you think about the journey behind the fruit you pick up at the supermarket.
Indeed. How do we ensure safety and facilitate trade efficiently, particularly for goods that won't last forever? This case is a pretty stark reminder of the challenges involved and the real costs when things don't go according to plan.